All right, hello. Welcome to the GRadulting Workshop Series. My name is Debbie McCutsky, and I am the coordinator of programs and services for graduate student legal aid. I use she, her pronouns. Simone Durham, she's a grad student advocate on our staff. She's here today too, and she will help ensure that things go smoothly. So we're happy to see you here on Zoom and on YouTube, and we're all going to spend some time preparing taxes. This is specifically for international students. Next week's tax workshop is for domestic students. So I know taxes can be a daunting task, but we're here to help you and hopefully make some sense of it all. Before we start talking taxes, I want to remind you or tell you a little bit about legal aid. We do more than this GRadulting Workshop Series. In a nutshell, we're here to help you when you have a legal issue, an immigration issue, when you get charged by the Office of Student Conduct, when you need a notary. And if you paid your graduate student fee, then you've already paid for our services. And there's no additional charge. So please let us know when you need help. If we cannot help you, we probably know someone who can. So visit our website to learn more about our services, and you'll find instructions for how to request an appointment. And before I move on, I want to let you know there is another workshop specifically for international students on March 28th. It is called Life After F1J1, and it will be presented by some advisors from ISSS. They are truly experts in this topic, and so I hope we will see you again on March 28th. So just a bit of housekeeping. Automatic closed captioning has been enabled. Near the end of the workshop, Simone's going to post a link to a survey. We need your feedback. Let us know how we did today. We will email links to the survey, the slides, and the recording after the workshop. Those links will also be posted on our website. So if you registered for the workshop, you will get those links. And finally, over the course of this workshop, we welcome your questions. Please use the Q&A feature and note that you can upvote a question that you were planning to ask. It will move that question to the top of the list. So remember, use the Q&A. All right, I am so pleased to start this workshop and welcome back and introduce our two speakers today. We have worked with these folks for several years now, and they both work tirelessly to help students here at the University of Maryland. I'll start off with Professor Sam Handwerger. He is a CPA, he has his master's in taxation, and he is a full-time lecturer in the Smith School of Business, and he is the advisor for TURP Tax. And Sam will tell you more about TURP Tax in a few minutes. Thanks for being here, Sam. Okay, next is Sue Dougherty. She is an experienced international education professional, and she has worked in this field for over 25 years. She knows her stuff. She is the director of ISSS here at the University of Maryland, and we are really happy that she could join us today. Thank you, Sue. All right, Sue, I know you have some announcements, some news to share, some updates. So I'd like you to start things off and get things going.
Well, I just want to start by thanking Grad Legal Aid and TURP Tax and SAM, as well as the graduate school at the University of Maryland for pulling together this workshop specifically for international students and their taxes. I've just posted in our chat the web page that ISSS has up for some tax resources that are available to all of you. We have met with TurpTax in preparation for the upcoming tax filing season. And what we discussed is in Glacier that each of you that has been paid by the University of Maryland, you have a Glacier report that you can log into Glacier and retrieve. That report is something that you can bring to TurpTax when you go and have your appointment, and it will help them with determining your tax status and recognizing what forms that they will need to work with you in. And so I'm going to leave most of the detail of taxes to Sam, as he is much more knowledgeable on the subject than myself. But we will be having a follow-up workshop on taxes in March after the state of Maryland issues the 1042S forms. And that will just be a sort of a final review for those of you that have to wait until March to receive that 1042S. Okay, Sam, I think those are all the announcements I have this morning, and thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And it's a pleasure to continue to work with you as we have in the past. And we're forging even better relations these days. We've got a good crew of volunteers that you've been introduced to, so we're ready to go. And speaking of ready to go, I'm going to share screen and we'll get into the meat and potatoes of today's topic. So I just got to get to the right screen. Don't look at that because it's a final exam somewhere. Now everybody's going to tell students with handworker, get on there and see the video. Okay, here we go. What are the tax issues if you're a foreign student in the USA? Well, there are many, and that's what we want to find out. Our first question is, are you required to file a tax return? And the answer is yes. There's some cases where you may not be required to file a certain tax return, but everybody who is, and we'll say this now, we'll set the stage, everybody who's F1 or F2 or J1 or J2, you've got a yearly annual requirement to file a return. The due date is April 15th. You can get an extension, but you do have to file for the extension. The good news is, even though you'll have to file a tax return of sorts, you may not have to pay taxes to the American government. That'll depend on each individual's facts and circumstances. Do you have to pay taxes on income here in the United States on money received from your home country? Probably not, because as F1 and J1, you're going to be considered for tax purposes here in the US. You'll be considered a non-resident alien. And non-resident aliens don't pay tax in the US unless it's US source income. And you don't pay tax on income from your home country, probably not at all, if ever. What are the taxes for non-residents when you're here? They'll have to be based on what I said, USA source income. What is USA source income? In the international tax class that I teach, it takes us about a week and a half to go through all of those, but suffice it to say, for your purposes, it's income that comes from some source within the United States. You can basically go on that logical conclusion based on the words US, United States source. It comes from somewhere in the United States. Somebody, an institution or somebody in the United States gave you the money. How do you know if you're non-resident? So these particular visa status letters that you see here have the unique status of being non-resident, even though they're here. Normally, if you're here in the United States, if you're present here in the United States, you're going to count days and you're going to become a resident after a certain number of days. But for you, ladies and gentlemen, where you have the F, J, or M or Q visas, you're exempt from counting days. So the exemption is from counting days that you're here. And so you're going to be a non-resident for 5 calendar years. It's by calendar year. So just as an illustration, if you start on December 31st of 2019, and you're here these years, even just for a part of the year, then you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 223. would be 5. So after 2023, you can see that December 31st, just as one day, counts as 1 year for the 5 years. So it's 5 calendar years, but you're not counting days. You'll be a non-resident for all those. Now that's 5-year test as if you are a student. There's a different test if you're a teacher or scholar in residence or researcher, and that's under J1. Those visa statuses are only good the first 2 years, first 2 calendar years where they're not considered non-resident. After this, we go to something called the substantial presence test, which I think gets more into the end of the March seminar webinar that's going to be done. Suffice it to say that it's based on a 183-day test. If you're here 183 days in 1 calendar year, you're going to be considered a resident if you're no longer in that 5 years as F1 or 2 years for J1. And then there's 2 parts to that test. There's a second test based on 3 years. Won't go through that now, but we'll keep going, assuming that most of you are still within your 5 years as F1.
Excuse.
Okay, I go back. Question? I'm not hearing it. So hopefully
There
you're
is a Sam. We had a question
Thank you, Sue.
in the Q&A and asking if the dependents of an F1 will have to file even when they don't have income.
So dependents of F1 would be considered F2, spouse or children, and they also have a requirement to file very similar to the F1. So there's basically no difference. They are considered non-resident, not counting their days for the same 5 calendar years, but they do have to file.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sam.
Okay.
You had a second question come up already, and one was, what does a person do if they were processed as a resident alien for tax purposes and they hold F1 status?
If they were within that first 5 calendar years under F1 and somebody either processed a tax return for them as a resident alien or they used TurboTax. So let's make a slide for that right now. This is a dangerous word for our audience today. TurboTax is a great service, but not for F1 or J1, because TurboTax will file you as a resident alien, and that is not correct. So I draw a little like skull and crossbones here. Don't use TurboTax if you are F1, J1, and you're in this first 5 calendar years as a student, because you're going to have the wrong form. So when that happens, if you file as a resident alien, which would be using, and here's how you'll know if you're not sure what we're talking about, see what was filed for you the last year. If they filed you under a Form 1040, no good. You should be filing under what's known as Form 1040 NR, NR standing for non-resident. So if it happened to you, the simple solution is you need to file an amended return. It's not that difficult following the instructions for amended returns, which would be a 1040X. However, TurboTax will do it for you. So I would suggest that you contact TurboTax in order to get that done. You can go back for as many years that was filed incorrectly and correct those. The only danger, no danger, you need to do it. You need to amend the returns that were incorrect. The only downside is you may find that you're going to owe taxes where you didn't owe taxes before. Hopefully it won't be a lot, but it's very possible.
Thank you, Sam.
Okay. Good question.
We do have 2 additional questions that popped up in the time you were answering that question. Do you want to move on to your
Let's
next
try it.
first?
Let's try it.
Try the question or move
Try
on?
the question. Try the question.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, no problem.
The first is, do you mean that someone needs to have lived in the US for 5 consecutive years, or do you mean they need to have a total of 5 years of residence in the US over any period of time?
Any 5 calendar years. It doesn't have to be consecutive. If somebody was here in 2012 F1, they used, even for a day, they used up one of their 5 years. So that year would be considered one, and then you'd count from there. Only under the F1 status, though.
Okay. And the second question, if someone didn't file their taxes last year, can they file for both the years together in April 2023?
So if you haven't filed based on what you learn in this webinar, then you need to file, and each year has to be done by itself. You can do it all on the same day, electronically filing everything in one day. Each year requires a return. So you can't do one return to cover more than 1 year at a time. Okay.
Okay, and then a follow-up question, I think, to the original question about being processed as a resident. The person says they sent a 505, but the Maryland government processed with a 502.
So that's a great question. Is there more to it, or are you
No.
got it? Okay, so that's a great question. So Maryland, which I will cover later in the slides, but let's do it now since the question is here. Maryland does not follow the tax law with F1, J1. They're not required to. And so they don't have this exception. So if you're in Maryland, the greater of 182 days for any calendar year, you are going to be a Maryland resident, and you do not file as a non-resident if you're here more than 182 days. So the key is 183, as you can see, because that's what's more than 182. You will automatically be a resident for Maryland. You will be a non-resident for federal. So let's say that one more time, and let's draw it out. So it's very possible if someone was here for all of 2022, 365 days as F1, still in their first 5 years, this is what their returns will look like. On the federal side, they're going to file as a non-resident because they're under F1 and their days don't count. On the Maryland side, should they have been living in Maryland the whole 365 days, or at least 183, they will file as a resident. There's no compunction under law that the states follow treaties. There's no compunction that the states follow the same non-resident rules that the federal government has. And so Maryland's one of the, I say it's more than a handful, but it's not that many states that don't follow treaties or the Maryland law with F1 or J1. So Maryland, you do wind up having to file as a resident. However, before you panic, that actually may be good because you might pay less taxes filing as a resident of Maryland than as a non-resident.
Thank you very much. Follow up to the F2 question. What if F2 doesn't have a social security number, but is asked for one while doing the tax return?
Okay. So that gets us to the ITIN number. And let's hold on to that one because I am coming to that in a little while, but that's a great question. But to briefly, F2s will have to get some kind of number. It's called an ITIN. That we get the question out of the way, but we'll come to more detail on that soon.
Okay. Another question. If I have a J1 visa for 1 year and an F1 visa for 4 years, does that still count as a total of 5 years?
If the J1 was as a student, the answer is yes.
Mhm.
You get 5 years as a student, whether you're F1, J1, or a combination, as that person's question indicated. And that's it. After that, you've got different rules to look at.
Okay. And then our last current question open is, this is my first, here's another one. This is my first attempt, but I have already received a form for filing tax returns from the comptroller with 3 parts. Is that the form I use for filing? If so, where am I expected to submit this form? Can I still use my temporary social security number?
Holy cow. See TurpTax for that one, I think, because I'm not sure what they sent. They must have sent forms to you, but I have to see what forms they sent.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's a W-2.
Oh, that's what they mean, not the tax filing forms, the W-2. Okay. We're going to get to all that. Just
Yeah.
hold on to that.
I'd like to suggest we let Sam provide more information in the webinar, and then we'll keep the questions in our Q&A And remember, for those of you joining now, that you can upvote questions if you find a question in the Q&A that is of shared interest to you.
All right, thank you. And because we've answered some questions, we'll be able to move a little quicker through some of the slides. That's good. All right, how do I know if I made US source income? I said if it comes from a US source, and here's again more detailed examples. You worked for the University of Maryland as a GA or a TA. It's in the United States. You got scholarship money from the University of Maryland or some other organization here in America. You made interest on money you would put into a US bank account. That's the sample, a good sampling of US source income. What do I need to prepare my tax return? Well, gets that ITIN or Social Security number. Sue, I believe all F1J1 people are eligible for a Social Security number. Isn't that correct?
The only with employment, so the group of students who are filing tax returns with US sourced income should have applied for and received their Social Security number. If you are only filing the 8843 because you haven't received any income, as an F1, you will need to use an ITIN.
Okay. And if you do need to get an ITIN, you're going to fill out, where TurpTax will help you prepare a Form W-7. And then we're going to go through a little bit more detail of how you get the ITIN if that's what you need to do. If you have the Social Security number, you're set. Nothing to worry about. So for the ITIN, that's what we're talking about here, this form has to be filled out. And in order to file the form, one of the issues with it is you have to file it with your paperwork that shows who you are, and your passport. And the IRS requires you send in, don't panic yet, because I have a solution for this. The IRS requires that you mail in your passport, the original passport, not a copy. Well, that's horrible, because who knows when you'll get it back, and you can't, it's not comfortable to be living in the United States without your passport. So there is a solution, and the solution is what's known as a certified acceptance agent, and I have identified, I should say the school has, the Smith School of Business has identified some very inexpensive CAAs right in the Greenbelt area. We're going to post that information with Sue and with Debbie with the GRadulting. We'll get that information posted. You're going to be free to contact them on your own. You can contact them with me, and they will provide you you'll probably need our help, because you need to go in with forms already prepared in order to make it work. Otherwise, it'll start costing you more money. So let TurpTax and myself help you get the proper forms, including the W-7 set up. You go there with your passport, they sort of stamp something or other, and then you don't have to send your passport to anybody, you keep it yourself. That's how you'll get an ITIN if you need it. And it could be for F2, FJ2, for your dependents, when they need it, a number, which is more likely that they'll need that number. It's a great way to get it. Okay, now on to the topics of what's it going to be like. So the forms you're going to get, these are the forms. Sue mentioned the 1042S. You'll get a W-2 if you worked. The 1042S will be something you get from the University of Maryland or some other source like that, where they gave you either scholarship money, maybe they paid you wages that are not subject to income taxation, or maybe it's subject to income taxation, but they withheld certain monies that are not on the W-2. For whatever reason, the 1042S will give you lots of good information. Usually the information that you'll pick up here will be the usage of a tax treaty. So if you're already worried about the usage of a tax treaty, from what I see of the University of Maryland, they do a great job of making sure that you don't have to guess about the treaty. They do a great job of giving you a 1042S that explains what article of the treaty you're using, and it's all laid out for you. It's still going to go in your tax return, so we still have to transfer that information to your tax return. But the 1042S is a real key ingredient in order to prepare your tax return. So again, question, how am I know I'm eligible to claim a tax treaty benefit? Well, usually the 1042S done by our school will clue you in on what that is. But if you're not sure and you're not using TurpTax, you can check the US tax treaty with your country. The key is the last country of your last residence. We had last year somebody who was from China, but they had gone to Egypt to have some education. They had spent enough time there that they actually became a resident of Egypt. So for them, it wasn't the China treaty that applied, it was the US treaty with Egypt. That's a rare occurrence. Usually your last residence is the country where you grew up and have left to come here for. But that's just a case you're on Jeopardy and they ask that question on the game show, you'll now know. I'm going to skip this slide because it's not really relevant today. It'll be relevant when you get off of F1 or J1. This particular article of the treaty, of the typical treaty, not all treaties, is why when you're a teacher, you may have some income that will be exempt from tax. And it's not often unusual that the exemption is only for the first year that you're here, and then sometimes lasting as much as 3 years. The treaty is explaining that for teachers, professors, and researchers, where your W-2 income, in this case, your W-2 income might be exempt from tax. You still have to report it on a tax return. Let me make this statement right now. In order to take treaty benefits, you still have to file a tax return, and there's a specific form that will get filled out with your tax return. To take those, you must file.
And Sam, I'd just like to add a point of clarification on the immigration status.
Okay.
For students on F1 status who are teaching as a teaching assistantship on campus, they will be considered students for the tax treaty purposes. And that would hold true for any J1 students. With a J1, the category of the DS 2019 will matter to the tax treaty that you are that's being applied to your situation.
Excellent point. Excellent point. So for tax purposes, that's great, Sue. For tax purposes, you could be J1, you could be F1, but if you're a student, you got that 5 years. And if you're anything else other than a student, let's say you're a teacher, you'd probably be J1, and that's where you have the 2 years. So you could actually have the status as J1, but you could still get the 5-year exemption. All right, great. Here's Article 20 from the China tax treaty with the US. And it states that you got, while you're F1 or J as a student, or J1 as a student, you get $5,000 tax-free. And it may extend beyond your 5 years because it doesn't limit it to 5 years. Shall extend only for such period reasonably necessary to complete the education. So if you're taking longer, let's say you extend to go to another master's program or postgraduate, so the exemption might apply for that. We're not going to get too detailed because that's after the 5 years. All right, tax issues, scholarships. Every treaty is different. Some treaties will not tax scholarships at all here in the US. Some treaties will do the normal rule, and then this is the normal rule. The normal rule, even for residents, is that scholarships can be taxable, but they're not taxable if it's received for, let's see how this slide works. Let me get the lay of the land here with you. Tax issue. Scholarships are not taxable if received not for services, and, so this should be an and, used for tuition, fees, and supplies, and you are registered as a degree candidate student, which most of the participants here today are. So if you fit this definition, your scholarship would not be taxable. Where the issue comes in is they are taxable if the amount that you're receiving is more than the tuition, and it's covering room, board, or research. These portions, just these portions, not the tuition, not the supplies, but these portions under the general rule are taxable in the US. Some exceptions based on treaty. So first rule, look at how much scholarship or stipend or fellowship did you get. They're all the same thing in tax law. They may be different things when it comes to living as a student or a trainee or a professor, but for tax law, all those words, stipend, scholarship, fellowship, they're all the same. Grant, even a grant's the same thing. They become taxable if they cover anything other than tuition and fees for your education. So even if it's covering your research, it's taxable, unless there's a treaty exception. So the first rule is this. The next rule is check the treaty and see if there's an exception to that. All right, when you work, those dollars that you get paid will be reported on a W-2. Those, when they're reported on a W-2, are taxable unless you see the following. And by the way, it's if U.S. company, so again, U.S. source. Unless, here's what you would see. Let me draw a W-2. I'm a lousy artist, and somebody out there might, this is who's paying. And I got an idea. Let's pretend, let's give credit where credit's due. This is the University of Maryland paying you. So it'll be their name, then your name, and then they're going to say what's taxable in a box for federal purpose. Then they're going to say what's taxable for state purposes. They're going to tell you the information you need to know in these boxes. When you get your W-2, if it's from the University of Maryland, and if for some reason the treaty allows you for federal purposes not to have to pay tax on any of the money you got, they will put a 0 here. So the treaty will already be considered with what they put up in this here doohickey box. Isn't that a good Maryland word, doohickey box? It'll be right there. Now, what you'll see here in the state will not be the 0. It will be all of it because it's for Maryland purposes, state of Maryland purposes. They're not following the treaty. You don't get an exemption. So you'll wind up paying some tax in Maryland, but you'll get the treaty benefit all done for you by the calculation by the University of Maryland. Now, some employers, if it's not the University of Maryland, all bets are off and you're not going to see the same. So let's take a look at what that would look like if it's not the University of Maryland. Let's go back. And I want to point out something that is relevant to another slide, but let's point it out now that we got this brilliant drawing illustration of a W-2, which is in red, by the way. So maybe I should use red. Let's say it's not, let's say it's an other employer paying you, reporting your income on a W-2. So in the box for federal, they put the number you earned. Okay, no problem. And they'll put that same number down here. You may be eligible for a treaty benefit out of this number. That's what TURP tax will do for you on your tax return. The other employer probably won't do that. Then one other problem is there's another box here for Social Security. We'll call this Social Security and Medicare. And if they put anything in those boxes, which we'll re-emphasize in subsequent slides, if there's any number in here, see TURP tax immediately, because that's wrong. That is not what's supposed to happen. When you're F1, J1, only F1, J1, again, we're going to emphasize this on another slide, but I'm getting it out while we got this brilliant picture here. F1, J1 do not pay Social Security Medicare tax during that 5-year period. If it happens, TURP tax will help you get the money back. There's a process that you have to follow. We'll give you good information on how to work you through that. So that's another thing to watch. Again, coming up on another slide. So just hold on to your horses. Let's go to the 1042S. This, as we said, this is going to list your treaty benefits and withholding tax exception. That's what most payers of grants, scholarships, and potentially like University of Maryland, even they're paying you for as a TA or something, they will use the 1042S where appropriate in order to have you see what treaty benefit you were eligible for. All right, we mentioned this. See, this is good why we answered those questions earlier. Now we're able to breeze right through. Now you're an expert. You could do this. You could say, oh, I know the state doesn't recognize the treaty. Treaty benefit, they go without any tax treaty benefits. That's not true of all states, but it's true of Maryland, and that's where we are now. So that's what we're concentrating on now. Maryland does not recognize treaty benefits. So let's, I'm not suggesting you move. However, it's not that bad. The tax in Maryland is not that bad, but you do need to file. You do need to file. Once you've reached 183 days, or if you have a source income in Maryland, you still need to file. You may be able to file a non-resident, but most likely you're going to file a resident return. All right, now we're going to do some recap. And while we do it, we're going to re-emphasize some of the things we've mentioned. So let's see how this works in terms of getting you to become experts. Forms you're going to need. The 1042 will list the amount of treaty benefits that applies, or it'll hopefully will list, and usually does, any amount of scholarship that's taxable. Sue, did you want to say something?
No, just that I think after we do your recap, we can go back to some Q&A. I think it's timely now.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so W-2 wages are taxable. Watch for box 1, which is going to list the amount of wages that are taxable. And that would be, if it's, again, from Maryland, it'd be net of treaty benefits. The wage report should list the amount subject to state income tax. During the first 5 years, you're not subject to Social Security, Medicare tax. We mentioned that. So watch your W-2s to see if anybody is taking Social Security or Medicare taxes out of your W-2. So you're looking for any withholding that might have been done, and the W-2 will show you that. And should that happen, then you have a refund position. You can get that money back. And if you start working, by the way, outside the University of Maryland, and you see on your pay stub those taxes being taken out, stop right away and go to the employer and explain your issue, and you'll be directed to their payroll department, which will probably be able to correct it. The exemption for this Social Security is for the first 2 years of J1 and the first 5 years of J1 if they're students, and obviously the first 5 years for F1. So during these 5 years, you don't have to pay that Social Security Medicare tax, which is great not to pay because it's 7.65% altogether. And there's no reason for you to pay it because you're probably not going to collect Social Security Medicare here in the US until after you matriculate and get a job here and get your visa status changed. All right, the tax exemption from this Social Security Medicare, that's what FICA means, Social Security, Medicare, that doesn't apply to F2. So it's only the F1 or J1. So if they do get a job, if they're allowed to work, if they get a work permit, and those taxes will be taken out. All right, this sums up how you get those dollars back. If they take out the Social Security Medicare tax, you can get them refunded, but you have to follow specific guidelines. So I would just say probably best thing is to contact me or TurpTax. We'll give you the specific procedures on how to get that back. And again, as I said, if you see it happening before the end of the year or the beginning of your job, tell them immediately, or even before you begin working, you should tell them this. That's the point. Before you begin working anywhere outside of the Maryland University campus, tell them don't withhold the Social Security, the FICA, which is the combination. All right, and although in most cases you shouldn't be working as an independent contractor, if you do, talk to TurpTax. If you are going to be considered an independent contractor and you're told by SUE and ISSS that it's permissible under your visa, that you can do this particular independent contracting, then talk to us as soon as you can. We're open all year, and I'd like to go through what some of the tax issues are for independent contractor status, because there's some interesting twists to that.
Okay. So Sam, we have some state tax questions pending in our Q&A. Would you like to try to take those now, or would you prefer to leave those till later?
I'm almost finished the wrap up, so let's see what happens. Let me do the wrap up and then we'll take the Q&A on all those.
Okay.
All right, what forms do you have to fill out? That's part of the wrap up. This is the one that is for everybody every year. 8843. Every F1, every J1, while you're in those years where it doesn't count the days. So if you're J1 for student, it's 5 years, 2 years. We went through that. If you're F1, it's 5 years. All these years that we have been mentioning, you need to file this form in order to claim that you're a non-resident. Without that form filed, you have no statute of limitations. If you're going for your H-1B someday or whatever, change of visa status, and they ask for your tax compliance, you're going to want to show at least 5 years of these, or if you're a student, 5 years of these forms having been filed, one for every year, one per year. You're going to want to fill out a Form 1040-NR if you had any kind of income whatsoever, any income whatsoever. So even if it's not taxable, even if not taxable. So if you had a scholarship and it's not taxable because of treaty, you still have to file, even if not taxable. If you had wages, but it was subject to a treaty, you still have to file this form to show the treaty benefit. even though the university is doing the 1042S for you and showing the treaty benefit, you still have to file Form 1040NR. So for most of us in the audience, this is going to be required. So now this is form number 2 that you'll be required to file in addition to the 8843. The 8843 would go by itself if you don't have to file 1040NR. It will go with the 1040NR if you're required to follow this form. So this, if required, check if required, will include the 8843. All right, when to file? We work on a calendar year here. So it's January 1 to December 31st, and then you got to file for by April 15th. In most cases, this year it's April 18th. But you're gonna have to file by mid-April unless you get an extension. And you have to file even if you haven't been here a full year, you still have to do the 8843. If you had any sort of income, even if you weren't here a full year, you got to file for that complete calendar year. So don't think that, well, I came in August of 2022, so I'll wait till next year to worry about this. It doesn't work like that. And I think I got just 1 or 2 slides left. Yep, only 2 slides left. How to file? Well, you can do it yourself. You can use Glacier, which will not do the state, right? That still won't do the state.
Correct. No state taxes via Glacier.
Yeah, you can't follow your state requirements by the Glacier, or you can use, and this is where the commercial comes in. I'm paying ISSS for commercial time right now. TurpTax. What is it? Well, it's free. Yay, it's free. Open to everyone. You can go to our website, which is not labeled here, but it's TurpTax. Oh, I don't know what it is anymore. I think it's turptaxumd.org, nonprofit organization. I should say TurpTax.
It's in the chat now, Sam.
Oh, good. Okay. I don't even know what it is. Whenever I'm giving something away for free, I don't know what it is. That's my motto. But anyway, it is free. I'm there as the quote sponsor. So if you get a particular tax issue that is stumping our volunteers, then they will come to me, or you can even suggest that they seek me out, and you can seek me out yourself, and I will be glad to deal with your particular issue. So that's really cool when I get to meet you. TurpTax volunteers are students at the business school, and I'm going to stop share screen so we can do the Q&A. TurpTax volunteers are business students. You have to understand one thing. I want to just make this so perfectly clear to you. If you think you can do it yourself, great. But if for any reason you can use TurpTax, out of the goodness of your heart, what you're doing is giving volunteer business students valuable experience. It's a win-win. You give them something that they can put on their resume and use, and the rest of their life, they can have this satisfaction of helping people in this volunteer effort, and you'll get a good job. All right, we are back to Q&A.
Okay, so first question. I received a tax refund for 2020 last year with interest. Should I report that as income or something else when I report my 22 taxes?
When you have had in a prior year a refund due and the IRS or the state of Maryland takes too long to send it to you, they will send you your refund plus interest. That interest is taxable at the federal level. It's not taxable at the state level, and vice versa for Maryland. Maryland's interest is not taxable at the federal level, but it's or at the state level, but it's taxable. Whatever. It has to be reported on one of those two returns.
And Sam, is there a official form that shows that interest that the students should bring to TurpTax? Should they?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. You will get a 1099. I don't think I mentioned that. Let's go back to my slide just for 1 minute so we can illustrate that. That's a good point. I don't know why my slides didn't do that. Defective slides this year. Holy cow. All right. So there's 4 possible forms you could get. W-2, 1042S. You would get also a 1098T for your scholarships and tuition paid. And then you might get a form 1099, which would be for interest, for independent contractor work that you might do. It'll be sent separately by each payor. So you might get a bunch of 1099s. It's a whole series of forms 1099. So those are the forms you want to concentrate on when you come to TurboTax or you sit down to do your tax return. Great question.
All right, thank you. Second question. I was accidentally overpaid for my part-time role on campus, and I am asked to return the money, including the amount that was deducted for taxes. Is there a way I can claim this transaction on my tax returns?
Wow. Yes, indeed. There are probably two ways to do it. One way would be to amend the original return, although that's sort of not the IRS's normal approach to it. The normal approach would be to deduct that payback in the year you pay it back. Assuming it's not in the same year, you would deduct it in the year you pay it back under a cash basis, and you would reduce your taxable income in that year. If it's all in the same year, it's pretty easy because they should be adjusting the W-2 for that year. So it's really going to depend on your facts and circumstances.
Okay.
I could have answered that question by saying I wouldn't pay it back, but that, considering I'm an employee of the University of Maryland, I'm not going to say that.
All right. Next question. Does filing as a resident mean paying non-US earning?
Oh, okay. So now we're graduating out of F1, and we meet the substantial present test. Now we got a whole series of issues that come out. And yes, I don't think that's the scope of our seminar here today, but I'll just mention that when you become a resident for tax purposes, because you're beyond that 5 years and you got 183 days here under the substantial presence tests that exist, then you're taxed on your worldwide income. Let me say that again, your worldwide income, no matter where it comes from. You will have to file reports showing if you have bank accounts or financial institution accounts outside of the US, you may have to file that report. That's extremely important. You may have to report assets that you own outside of the US. You got major league responsibilities. Now you may have major league tax credits and deductions, and you might wind up paying a whole lot less tax in the US because you're a resident, but you got some serious filing requirements once that occurs.
And an easy way to find out if you've now surpassed the substantial presence test is to use your Glacier link, because Glacier will walk you through that substantial presence test, and in the end it will say to you, you are now a resident alien for tax purposes, and you're not eligible to use the Glacier software. So that's one way to know if you've exceeded the substantial presence.
And I'll just add to that, hopefully Glacier also walks you through the next step, which is, suppose you've been here more than 5 years, but your ultimate intention is to return to your home country, then you may be eligible for what's called the closer connection test, closer connection to your home country, and still be able to file as a non-resident here in the US. That's about 20 pages of regulation. So, but it's good to keep in mind. Yeah, good to know.
Okay. All right, so we have two related questions about 1098Ts. The first is, can you explain what the purpose of the 1098T is? And second is, am I required to file taxes on this basis too?
Okay, and for that, I'm going to go back to share screen because I love drawing, and I think all our participants are loving my drawings as well. So I'm going to do that because I'm so good at it. So we're going to go and we're going to say, let's take a look at a 1098T. Should be in red, but all right. So the 1098T, its first purpose is up in a box up here, is to show tuition paid. So that's the first thing it will show of importance, the amount of tuition paid. It's sort of the government, it's sort of a form that has to remind you of the cost of education in the United States. Then it will show you in another box down here, it'll show you the amount of scholarships that you got. So it'll give you the total amount of scholarships. In a simplistic sense, and I say simplistic because there are some exceptions to it, but I won't go through the exceptions here because it's generally working this way pretty well now that they've corrected over the past years how this form gets completed by schools. it will show you the amount of scholarships. And in this sort of general approach, let's call it a general approach. If you take, let's call this B and this number A. So the amount of tuition paid is number A, and the amount of tuition or scholarships received is B. If you take B and you subtract it from A and you get a positive number, it means that your scholarship covered more than your tuition. And that is a clue that you may have that taxable portion of scholarship money. Because what did the plus cover? Well, maybe room and board and personal items, which would be taxable unless there's a treaty that doesn't do it. So if you're looking at B minus A or B equals A, then you have no tax to worry about, or the opposite is true. If the amount of B minus A is a negative number, then there's obviously a tax. So that's a good way to get a guidepost as to whether you have a potential taxable scholarship, fellowship, grant from the US source. Hope that helped.
Okay, and so I'm guessing the general answer to, well, not I'm guessing, I know the answer, is yes, you need to use this form when you file your taxes. It is required.
You need to take a look at it, and if that scholarship, grant, tuition, fellowship, whatever it is given to you for your tuition is greater than the amount of tuition paid, then you need to you probably need to, with all due respect, you probably need to talk to a CPA or a tax preparer or a TURP tax, because then we'll walk you through like a little checklist of, well, did you have other things? First thing we'll do is check the treaty. That's the first thing we'll do. Like if the treaty, like China, the treaty is none of it will be taxable. So that's great. So maybe the planning, I always get carried away with these things. Maybe the planning is check the treaty first. If you're not from China and it's going to tax that situation. So before you get into it, go to China for a year, become a resident, and then come to the US. Oh, that's bad. It's a good thing this is not covered under my professional firm. This is all just education, because this is not tax advice.
So a follow-up question to that. So if my B minus A is negative,
Nothing to worry about.
Right.
they said, and taxes being cut from my paycheck, do I get returns?
You may. Oh, and that's another reason. Let me just emphasize this. Another reason to file, even if you think you don't owe taxes, but you got a W-2 or you had a 1042-S and there were some taxes taken out, file anyway, because you never know, maybe some of that money comes back to you. Generally speaking, on the 1042-S, that's not going to be refundable because it's usually indicative of what we call the flat tax in the United States for non-resident aliens. But hey, file anyway. You never know, particularly with the state. The state, that's very possible that you'll get some money back.
And the last question, or I think the last question right now about 1098Ts. For someone who is an F1 student, does not receive scholarships, paid tuition, and had no income in 2022, should they use their 1098T when filing?
Okay, it's an interesting question. You probably don't need to file. If there was a panel of CPAs here, they would probably say, oh, well, in that case, no taxable income, no scholarship, no fellowship, no grants, no W-2s, no 1099s with interest or dividends or things like that. You probably don't need to file. And that's probably the correct answer. If I'm an F1, knowing what I know about our US government, I'm filing even a zero return anyway. Just to be on record, I've complied with my taxes. If you don't file and you made a mistake, you didn't get a 1099 that was issued, you didn't see it, you didn't know, then you start running into problems later on because the statute of limitations didn't start. It's open forever. You're going to change your visa status and the US government wants to know if you're in tax compliance. And you say, well, I didn't file because I didn't have to. And then they don't necessarily understand that. They think everybody has to file. So for me, I would just file.
And everyone should be reminded they do have to file the 8843.
That's true. Good point. Good point. I'm thinking of the tax return, but
Right.
the 8843 is an information return at every year. I did say it, but Sue's good to
Yeah.
remind me. I think it's perfect timing every year.
Okay, another question. I'm an F1 student. I have a W-2 and a 1098T, but no 1042S. Is that enough for tax purposes?
If you're not going to get a 1042S, then the answer is yes, that's fine. That's all you need.
And the 1042S will not be issued by the state of Maryland until mid-March. So if you are going to get a 1042S, you will need to wait and file those taxes.
You may have noticed when Sue said it's not going to be issued to the middle of March, you may notice me. That's a typical CPA reaction when they know that they're not going to have all the forms in to file a return and they got 1 month, 30 days to do it. That's a typical.
All right. Where do we find the 8843 form?
That's a great question. First of all, Glacier, I think, does it for you.
Yes, it does.
So they do a great job. You can bring, if you need to file the regular 1040 NR, you can bring it to TURP tax, you can bring it with you. And it gives us all the information we need right away to just do it electronically for you. And I think Glacier, does they file it electronically if you only need to file?
No, Glacier, you have to mail in the 8843. There's no electronic filing there, but you can do, you can prep for a TURP tax visit by using Glacier, which is also free to you. And then that will just help your TURP tax volunteer with completing your taxes.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. And the advantage of if you just took the 8843 to us to get electronically filed, at least it's a record that you filed. Otherwise, if you just mail it in regular mail and they don't get it or they lose it, you may not have any proof unless you did return receipt mailing, which is a whole another, that's another seminar.
All righty. Next question. I transferred from Missouri to UMD in August 2022. So I received May through August 2022 income from Missouri and September 2022 till now income from UMD. Do I file my taxes separately or together?
You do file federal, like we already spoke about. And for now, we are asking about state income tax filing. You're going to need to file 2 states. And most likely, although I don't know all the details, but most likely you'll be filing as a part-year resident in both states. So that's, so it'll be a resident return, but it'll be marked off as part-year in Missouri, part-year in Maryland, and that's how you'll file.
Okay.
And we do that. We do all 50 states and the District of Columbia, so it can all be done there. Get TURP tax.
Perfect. RTA stipends considered wages or salaries, or do these fall under scholarships and fellowships?
I believe the school treats them as wages because you're doing a service. So as long as you're being paid hourly as a TA, you're going to get a W-2.
All right. If I am anticipating getting an income stipulated by a contract, but file before actually receiving this income, should I indicate that when I file?
That's a good question. We live in the United States for tax purposes as individuals under the cash basis. We report when we receive the cash, when you get the cash. Now, there's only there's one tiny, huge expense. That doesn't make sense. Tiny, huge exception. I won't go into it, but let's say this. If you are trying to manipulate when you receive the cash on your own, you're trying to manipulate when you receive the cash, don't do that. If the cash comes to you or it's available to you, it's taxable in the year received.
Okay, taxable
in the year received.
year received. All right. I arrived to the US in August 2021 on an F1 visa, started working at UMD in March 2022, and so received my W-2 forms for the first time this year. I did not file a Form 8843 in 2022. Can I file the one I missed while filing this year? I will be graduating this May.
Yeah, they probably meant that they didn't file the 8843 for the 2021 year when they first got here. Yes, you can still file that now. It's a separate form. You're going to need to file 2 8843s now, in addition to a 1040 NR for the year 2022. Assuming you didn't have any income from any source in 2021, you won't need the 1040 NR. And I know I spoke that fast, but I hope that answer got across.
Okay, it looks like Sue is also typing the answer for that one, which is great.
Okay, okay, good. Hopefully it's the same answer.
Next question. I was a J1 in 2016 and then returned to my country. Since August 2022, I am an F1. Should I have to mention the prior J1?
If you are a student as F1, which is normally the case, you do not have to do that. You're fine.
No. Okay. I received my fellowship in September with tax already deducted from it. Do I still have to pay more while filing?
Generally not, because they did it perfectly dollar for dollar on what the required tax is supposed to be. You still have to file the Form 1040 NR to show that that was done. You still have to file that because you got income, but you won't owe any more taxes on those dollars.
Okay, while Nicole is typing, we have a second question about state tax filings. This person did an internship in Texas during the summer and worked with the university during the fall semester. His income from Texas, he paid federal tax and wants to know if he has to pay any state tax for the Texas internship to Maryland. The address on the W-2 from Texas is his Maryland residential address.
Okay, I'm going to answer this question. And on this question, I'm going to say that I'm 100% right. I'm not taking that stance on any other answers I've given. And that's because Texas does not have an income tax. So there is no tax to pay. You don't have to file anything. You don't have to worry about it.
All right, while Sue is typing to that one. Next question. The tax treaty with my home country says the first 8,000 is exempt from tax. My scholarship amount in the 1098T is a bit over 8,000 and under 500. So I'm a bit confused whether I am eligible for exemption.
Okay, and that's all I can tell you is we're going to have to see what tax treaty you're talking about, because usually that amount, what that is usually referring to is for services, but not necessarily covering the scholarship. So we would have to really see the language of the tax treaty. The US has about 67 or 68 tax treaties with different countries, and they're all based on a similar model, but they're all different. They are all different.
All right, next question. I am an F1 student. I started working on campus in December, but wasn't paid my first salary or check until January 6th. So that would mean that I have zero taxable income for 2022, correct?
That should be the case. You should not be getting a W-2 if the check was made in January. That's correct. That check in January of 2023 would be included in the W-2 for 2023. And now if you get a W-2 from the school or the state of Maryland, whoever the payer is, then you'll know that that's not the way it's being recorded on their end, and you'll have to follow the way they're doing it. But it shouldn't be a W-2 in 2022.
All right. I am an F1 student, no scholarship, paid tuition, no income in 2022. I got a 1098T. I would like to know if I'm required to file taxes.
So this person's saying no income from any of the sources that we've been mentioning, but they got a 1098T. No scholarships? Is that part of the question?
Scholarship.
There was scholarship?
No, they said no scholarship.
No scholarship. Yeah. So then from a technical standpoint, as I think I mentioned earlier, is that a panel of CPAs will say, oh, you're not required to file the 1040 NR. As Sue pointed out before, as a reminder, the 8843 is still required, but technically you wouldn't have to do the 1040 NR. For my dollar, I would do it. That's just my recommendation.
And Sam, I'd like to revisit the question we had about the whether the assistantship stipends are wages, which you answered correctly, that's reported on the W-2. But I want that person who asked the question to think about whether or not they have a tax treaty that would be applied to those wages, because if indeed they do have a tax treaty, then they would also get the 1042S. And they would want to have that form for filing the income tax.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you for doing that. That's a great point. What Maryland will do, what Sue's office does, is the W-2 will come out with the right amount for the federal tax portion and the right amount for state. So, and if the two numbers are different, if let's say the federal number is 0, that'll show up on the 1042S showing that it's being given the treaty benefit it deserves. So you'll get a split. Those dollars could be split, at least for the federal part. Isn't this complicated?
Yeah, but you know, if people look at those boxes on that W-2, they can sort of decipher if they need to wait for that 1042S.
Oh, that's a good point. So if you see the box for federal wages being less than the state wages, you know that you should be getting a 1042S. That bears repeating. If you get your W-2, which you already have, and you see in the federal wages a number that is less than the state wages, then you are waiting for a 1042S.
Interesting. Okay. A follow-up question for the student who had the internship in Texas. Should they update the address on their W-2 from the internship to their Texas address, or is it okay to let it be the Maryland address?
If you don't think they're going to ever need to contact you again for any reason, there's no reason to do that. It's fine.
All right. I have been working at the university dining from September 2022. I have moved into a different place, and I think my W-2 is lost in the mail. Can I still access my W-2 online or request a new one to my new address?
I have the web address for the state of Maryland online payroll system where people can log in to get their W-2. I can post that, Sam.
Great. Great.
Okay. And what is currently the last question? I took an appointment with TurpTax for March 7th, but I'm not sure if by then I will have received my 1042 form. If I don't get it by the appointment, is that okay? Or what would happen in that case?
What would happen? That's like one of these leading questions that leads me to some joke, which I'll skip for now. You should show up anyway for the appointment. We are developing a box, so to speak. We've got this list of people that we've already met with and we'll be meeting with that are lacking the 1042S. We're making notes. We have a whole crew adding to our volunteers coming in the beginning of March to that. Their job will be merely to finish returns that have already been started, but didn't have the 1042S. So we're all set for you. Don't hesitate, make the appointment.
All right. Well, that concludes the Q&A as of right now. So Debbie.
All right, well, let's wrap it up. Wow. Thank you, Sam, Sue, and Simone. Everyone whose name starts with an S is eligible to be in the dream team. It was such a pleasure to work with the three of you today, and I hope this was helpful to students. I know I always learn a lot at these tax workshops. So thank you also to the students who are joining us on Zoom and those who will watch this on YouTube. It was good for us to spend some time together. So next week, the tax workshop is for domestic students, but we hope to see you at the following workshop, which is on Tuesday, March 7th. The topic is launching a startup. And this one will be in person, and we will serve a light lunch, and that is free. So sounds good, right? Please take a minute to finish the post-workshop survey. Literally, it will take you a minute. And if you want a reminder about upcoming workshops and a bit of news, please sign up for our briefing. And I think that's it. Have a good week, everyone. And as always, let us know how legal aid and ISSS and TurpTax can help you.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Simone.